Welcome back to another episode of the Even Your Dynasty Show. It is Thursday morning. Giants are coming off a laugher of a win, 13-2 over the Milwaukee Brewers last night. They are going for a series win tonight. They remain 2 games under 500, 8 games back in the wild card. Um, it's kind of a matter of when, not if, they're going to be eliminated, but it is nice to see them playing a good game against a good team. And, they're coming off the series win against the Padres. It would be nice to see this club, pull out some, good quality baseball in a month where they're going to have a lot of really tough teams that they're going to have to face, playoff teams. Um, Other than I think the Cardinals, every team that there's, lined up to play in the next few weeks, they're all teams that are going to be probably playing in October. So it'd be nice to see if they can at least just pull out a good solid month of baseball and get some momentum to carry into the offseason. But, we'll see. This has been a team that's kind of struggled to sustain any kind of momentum for any kind of duration of period all season long. But the main focus on today's episode is the San Francisco Giants fired 4 pro scouts yesterday. And I'm not going to necessarily comment too much on whether it was deserved or not, because frankly, I don't get the scouting reports these guys see. I don't, get to see that details. But the reality is the product on the field, they've struggled to pull in good players outside the organization. And so, it's like, do they deserve is it a good thing to shake up the scouting department? Perhaps, but I'm going to kind of dive into like what it kind of feels like this move really is. But first, if you guys do enjoy the content I put out, do please like the video, subscribe to the channel. You guys were awesome on my minor league video I posted a couple days ago. I think we went up about 25 subs in the last 2 days, which is awesome. It's still like 65% of the watch hours I get are from people that aren't subscribed. So if you do enjoy the content, please do hit that. It does help for the channel growth, the algorithms, all the stuff. And hit the bell for notifications. I think our plan is gonna be to go live tomorrow night. We'll do our weekly live show. So I think Dan will be joining me for sure, and we'll go from there. Probably, it's a late game tomorrow, so it may be kind of towards the tail end of the game. We may start it a little early. We may, we'll see. But I'll put something out kind of given a timeline for people, probably tomorrow. But now back to the meat of this is, this isn't the first time Farhan has fired scouts. The first time was back in 2019. He fired 8 of their 20 scouts. Now, I don't know if they ever hired new scouts, replaced them, or just, filled it in with their analytics division. Not sure, how they handled that at that time, but they did fire 8 scouts back in 2019. And now they've fired 4 more. And again, I don't know if this is going to be something where they're going to replace these scouts with new scouts, or if it's just them going deeper and deeper into the analytics and relying on that more and more, which, whatever your opinion might be on that, like that just seems to be the trend of baseball. I know the Cubs, I believe, just did a similar thing where they fired some of their scouts, some of their veteran scouts. And, I'm not a big fan of that. I'm still a big believer in the eye test. I think it's necessary. I think the numbers can only take you so far, but that's my feelings on the matter. But what it really feels like is this almost feels like this year's scapegoats for Farhan Zaidi. And it's a kind of a combination between them and Melvin. And for those of you that have not read the article where Bob Melvin did an interview with Andrew Baggerly on The Athletic, if you are subscribed to The Athletic, I would highly recommend checking it out. You can tell there's a disconnect right now between him and the front office. And this is kind of what we've been saying on this channel all season, that I've watched Bob Melvin manage for 20 years. He is not managing this season like he always has. You can tell it's very much reliant on the analytics and it's like he's doing what he thinks Farhan wants him to do. And I don't know if that's a directive from Farhan because, I'm not going to say with certainty that Farhan's controlling everything, but when Bob Melvin is managing the exact same way Gabe Kapler managed, when that's not the kind of manager Bob Melvin has been historically, it raises a lot of questions. And even Bob commented on it in the interview where he mentions that, he's with an analytical front office and he feels like the model that they have in San Francisco, it's supposed to be ran a certain way. So he got away from doing what he's always done, and that's using his gut at times. Bob Melvin is closer to Bruce Bochy than he is Gabe Kapler historically in his style of managing, and yet he has ran this team almost entirely like Gabe Kapler has in the past. And he rarely he does deviate more than Kapler ever did, but it's not a ton. So when I see scouts getting fired, wouldn't shock me if like a hitting coach gets fired. It just feels like last season where, at the end of the year, Kapler's the guy that got the axe. And the question's always been, should you have just fired both of them? And I think the answer is yes. I mean, if you're going to go the route of change, get rid of both. Get a whole new, fresh start in there. But instead, you get rid of Kapler, who, in all reality, I think there was a stronger case to keep Kapler over Zaidi. And I say this as somebody that did not want a manager in that mold any longer. I felt like they both should have been gone. But Kapler kind of was asked to polish a turd for 2 years, and he got probably about as much as you could have hoped for out of the talentless, wretched roster that he was handed from Farhan Zaidi. And yet he was the guy that got fired, not the guy that built the horrible roster. He was the guy that got fired, which made zero sense in a nutshell. And now Bob Melvin, he gets handed theoretically more talent, but it's a very flawed roster. We've already dove in on that many times, where it's just an incredibly flawed roster. They strike out way too much. They're horrible situationally. It's just a poorly constructed roster. There was not enough starting pitching, especially early in the year. They're super reliant on guys coming off injuries, young pitchers, things like that, where the rotation's been terrible. The bullpen is solid, but the bullpen's been absolutely abused all season because it's been used way too frequently. And it's just we keep giving Farhan these excuses and these passes where it's like, okay, well, the coaching staff wasn't good enough. Well, the scouts aren't finding us good enough players. Now Bob Melvin's not utilizing the roster to the best of his ability. It's always an excuse. It's always somebody else. And that's what this move feels like. Whether that's what it is or not, I don't know, but that's what it feels like looking at this from the outside. So, I've always said as long as Farhan's here, there's always an ability to change my opinion on the guy. There's always the ability that he can figure it out. I mean, I'm not one of those people that's going to come out and say he's incapable of doing it, but I do feel he needs to change the way he operates. I think he's going to have to do something bold this offseason because, frankly, he's going into year 7. If there was a year that was going to be developmental focused and I pushed for it where it was like turn the page to 2025 as far as like trying to compete or like be an actual legitimate contender, you can still try and field a competitive team, but trying to be a legitimate contender, you can turn the focus to 2025. That's how I talked about it all season. Well, you don't get that luxury anymore. He's going into year 7 next season. It needs to be, you need to have a good team that's going to be playoff bound, which good luck in this division. Because frankly, Arizona and San Diego look like they're miles ahead of the Giants, and then the Dodgers are just in a different stratosphere. And I don't know how he's going to do it, but if they're going to bring him back, like to hell with the developmental stuff. You're in year 7. You lost that right. This year should have been that right, and you screwed the pooch. So now next season, you better win. And if he doesn't, they should just let him walk because the news did come out that him and Bob Melvin both are only guaranteed contracts for next season, which is big in 2 aspects. Number one, it makes it easier to let him walk after next season. I get not a lot of people do lame duck stuff, but frankly, they haven't earned the right to get another extension. So if you are going to bring him back, like makes it easy at that point. But also, if they do decide to move on, which I don't foresee that happening. I've said my gut has been that they're not going to move on from Farhan. this offseason. If they do change their mind and decide that they do need to do that, it does make it easier to stomach if there's only 1 year left on the deal and not multiple years. That was the thing where when everyone thought it was 2 more years on the extension, um, it would have made it a little tougher for the ownership in reality to move on from him. So that's just kind of where I fall, though. Like, to me, it's kind of they're at the crap or get off the pot phase as far as winning goes. They had an opportunity. I would have given them the pass. I would have been all for it. I wanted to see. I felt like the best pathway forward was finding your own stars, building blocks, whatever you want to call them, internally, and going from there. But now they're in a spot where you've locked up Chapman. That's a move that screams that we're going to try and win. We'll see what they do with Snell. There's some impact free agents out there. A guy like Willie Adames, who's not the sexiest name. This isn't a guy that's viewed as like some sort of top player in the game, but he's a guy that you can hit fifth and he'll drive in a crap load of runs for you. That's just been what he's done in the past. He has been so good with runners in scoring position in his career. I've mentioned about how he's a guy that, Jeff Kent always talked about the money hit. He's a guy that Jeff Kent would love because the guy, he gives you the money hit, and he's a very good defensive shortstop. On top of that, get a guy like him, maybe find one more impact bat in the lineup, lean in on some speed, get some pitching in, actually go into the season next season with a full rotation. So that way you're not killing your bullpen come May or June. And I think this team could easily win in the upper 80s on wins, if not better. And then you're set up for one Bryce Eldridge is hopefully available in 2026. And that will hopefully be your star, and you can have your team, well equipped for the future. But has Farhan earned the right to show that he can do something bold like that? Because it's not going to be option deals. These are going to be long-term contracts you're going to have to hand out. He's never been willing to really do that outside of the Correa thing where he bailed out. And then Lee, who he hedged with an option opt-out in the middle of the contract. And then he really hasn't made any bold trades. Because even the Chris Bryant one was like, you had to do it, and it was a rental. He didn't give up really any top prospects for that deal. So I don't know. I can't sit here with certainty and say he has the intestinal fortitude to make the moves necessary to turn this club around for next season. But seems like he's going to be back. This just feels like another scapegoat move. That's just my feelings. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. I appreciate the support, everyone. We'll definitely, like I said, we're going to try and go live tomorrow night, so catch us there. But other than that, go Giants, and